Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Welcome to Plank of the Week. It's Friday night on talkTV. I'm Mike Graham, and have we got a show for you? This is the one place where you don't have to judge anybody because we do it all for you. And I've got a fantastic panel, a couple of newbies for you as well. Alex Phillips, of course, a veteran of this show, talkTV's very own. Emirali, former Conservative advisor. Maddie, Hale, who is also now with us at talkTV. And Rafe, Heydel-Mankoo, broadcaster and historian. Both of you for the first time. Welcome to the show. And thank you very much for joining in. This is going to be fantastic. Here's what we are aiming to give away at the end. And we've got some great nominations. Alex, why don't we kick off with you?
Right, I'm going to kick off exactly where I need to kick off and kick it where it hurts, and that is Sir Lego-Head, a.k.a. Keir Starmer.
Yes.
Because, you know, the Lego-headed loser has dawdled and dallianced with
Sorry,
the
don't you mean has
unspeakable...
been extremely very decisive? Because he has said that.
He's
been
very
decisive.
decisive
Yes.
about stamping out anti-Semitism in his party.
Yeah.
Because, of course, there was the candidate for Rochdale, Azar Ali,
Yes.
who was caught saying, well, you know, the 7th of October attacks, they were just staged, weren't they? So Israel could go and pound Gaza.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
You know, that old anti-Semitic
Yes.
trope. And Sir Keir Starmer said, well, he's apologised
Yeah, he apologised.
fulsomely for this. He went down a web conspiracy theory, bless him. That's exactly what
Easily
we
done.
want.
So let's have a look at Angela Rayner campaigning with him.
Hi, I'm Angela Rayner, and it's great to be here in Rochdale. And we've got Azar Ali, who is our wonderful candidate who's going to be a big voice for Rochdale. We need to kick the Tories out. The cost of living crisis, people's rents, mortgages, the gas bills, the electric bills, the food bills. People are really struggling at the moment, and that's why we've got to send a very clear message to the Tories. We want them out, we want a general election, we want Labour, and we want to give people of Rochdale their future back.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't vote for Labour now in Rochdale, can you?
Well, you can still vote for that geezer.
But not for Labour, though.
You know,
Probably going to win.
Is that an XL, by the way,
It's
is that an
so
XL bully
dark.
dog there?
I was going to say that.
I just wondered because, you know, you should put a muzzle on that thing. You should have put a muzzle on this guy, actually. And he wouldn't have said what he said.
But it's not just one, is it? Because there's now another geezer called Graham Jones in the same meeting, you know, effing and blinding and swearing and pounding the older walkways of anti-Semitism. And the Labour Party are like, no, we stamped it out. That was just a Jeremy Corbyn thing. I sat in his cabinet and I didn't like it, but, you know, I just held my nose and got on with it. They haven't, because the politics of the Labour Party, frankly, is the politics of envy.
Yeah.
And the old trope is, it's OK to be prejudiced against people who are privileged. It's OK to be prejudiced against people with white skin. And this is why anti-Semitism just runs rife in the Labour Party,
Well,
because of that old trope about Jewish people being in charge of things.
But you know there's going to be more people coming out. You know that there's an awful lot of
gazillions.
Labour councillors up and down the country who believe all this stuff, and they sit in meetings and they don't report it to anyone because they agree with it.
They love it.
And here's the thing with Keir Starmer. Any time he sees a TV camera, he says, oh, I've changed the country. I've changed the party.
Yeah.
Well, no, you haven't, Starmer, because clearly you've got the same old idiots in the party, anti-Semitic, against basically British values and going on their own agenda. So he's not changed the party at all.
Can you do that impression again? Because it sounded like he'd eaten David Miliband.
It's probably a bit more Ed Miliband, wasn't it? Am I tussed us? Hell yes, I'm tussed us. But they're all the same. They all sound the same.
All the same. We've got another clip for you here. This is Azar Ali talking before he was dropped by the Labour Party.
Rochdale is in my blood, and I've seen this town change in front of my eyes, the highs and the lows. I want to do what I can to make it the best that it can be. And to me, that means rolling up my sleeves and getting to work. We need someone who can deliver change, and that's what I do.
I mean, that literally is an E-by Gum accent, isn't it? That?
I thought he'd
Hell.
had that up a bit. It sounds different from when he's talking about Israel, doesn't it?
It does a bit, yeah. He seems a very affable character. But unfortunately, as you say, you scratch the surface of some of these Labour candidates and you're going to go... And, I mean, Starmer is now absolutely crapping it because it turns out that in the last 2 weeks, their lead has been cut to something like 7 points, I think, over the Tories, because people are just looking at the Labour Party and now going, well, they've got half of the parliamentary party who want a ceasefire in Gaza, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, he had to kick them off the front bench because they decided that wasn't his policy. You know, they're just as bad as the Tories, it seems to me.
But this gift is a gift that's going to keep on giving for the other parties, because all of those people in attendance at that meeting, that council meeting, are now being asked, well, why didn't you speak up?
Right.
So this may be these might be the first two heads of many to fall.
Oh, I think
But, you
so.
know, the whole point that you have Ali and Graham Jones, these are this is where the Venn diagram between the radical left and the Muslims with a strong anti-Semitic streak come together on these sorts of issues.
I think we're going to find out it was actually a Labour candidate training day.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's clearly two different parties, isn't it? Because the last election, the only actual constituency that Labour won was Putney. You know, a rather affluent part of southwest London where people drive around in, electric Volvos and things, and they're all very rich.
You know what's amazing about the Rochdale election is you've basically got three candidates who were Labour Party members. You've got Simon Danchuk, Labour MP. You've got George Galloway, former Labour MP. And now you've got this guy, Azhar Ali, was the Labour candidate. But yet you can't actually vote for a Labour candidate if you wanted to. I mean, that just tells you everything you need to know about the party.
I mean, if they carry this kind of this strategy into the general election, the stories might still be in power in a year's time. Let's have a look at all the candidates in the Rochdale by-election. Azhar Ali is the former Labour Party candidate. He's now independent. Mark Coleman is independent. Simon Danchuk is Reform UK. Ian Donaldson, Liberal Democrat. Paul Ellison, Conservative. George Galloway, Workers' Party of Britain. Michael Howarth, Independent. William Howarth, Independent. Guy Otten, Green Party. And Raven Subordner, the official monster raving loony party. And David Tully, Independent. Leon, what have you got for us?
So this is the TfL, so Transport for London, run by our good friend on this programme, Sadiq Khan, let's not forget. And there was a poor lady who was disabled, she was in a wheelchair, and the elevator broke, the lift broke, and she couldn't get up the stairs to the platform she was trying to get to. So she had to haul herself up the staircase while the staff simply looked on and laughed at her. The poor lady. No. And you think, this is the TfL that pander to every single minority, no matter how sort of, minuscule that minority is. And yet, this poor disabled lady who couldn't find her way to her train platform is being ridiculed by staff and not
Unbelievable. Her name's Jenny Berry. It happened at Dalston Junction Station. Let's have a look.
Unfortunately, the lift was out of order. There was no signage at the station I'd left from to tell me that the lift was out of order, and there was also no staff around on the platform to assist in trying to get me to another accessible station. Staff did actually appear at the top of the stairs by the time I got there, but also found it hilarious when the lift technician announced that he'd just got the lift working when I'd got to the very top step. You can actually hear them on this recording laughing when they realise.
Dear me, I mean, that is horrendous, isn't it?
I mean, how do they're miraculously there when she's at the top of the stairs,
Right.
and no one's even bending down to help her up.
This is really sort of close to my heart in many respects. So I've said for a long time, this whole confection that disability is a skin colour, disability is a sexuality, gets in the way of genuine disability. And people who are genuinely disabled are more prejudiced against than anybody else. And my uncle, my late uncle, who had MS, had no choice but to essentially live in this part of the world, right by London Bridge, because the Jubilee line, being more recently built, is the only tube line, frankly, that caters for people in wheelchairs. The rest of them don't. And while we walk around going, oh, I feel offended because you've, not said my pronouns, people who have genuine obstacles in life...
You can't actually get up and downstairs.
Are just not catered for, completely invisible and mocked. And this exemplifies exactly the problem. I'm glad you picked that.
And I think the thing is now, particularly as we are all, armed with phones and able to record everything, you'd think even if they thought it was funny, they wouldn't be laughing while somebody was actually there in front of them.
No.
You'd think they'd have the good sense to do it out of the way.
No, and I do hope...
But they haven't.
I hope that those staff can be identified and spoken to at the very least, because look at this, it's such a shame that someone who clearly wants to go about their daily life but are being hamstrung effectively by TfL's mismanagement.
Or even the ability to update the website. Why is that so delayed?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, strangely enough, we haven't heard from Sadiq Khan on this one, have we?
Well, that's strange, isn't it, Mike?
He hasn't spoken out on this.
No, and it's a shame because Sadiq Khan, of course, doesn't like to speak out very often.
Hardly at all.
No. Do you know what? Let's say what's going on here. If she happened to be an ethnic minority, then she would have been discriminated against and not helped because of her skin colour. That would have happened. That is so predictable that would have happened.
But it also comes down to people saying, well, that's not my job. Last month I had to help an elderly lady who was halfway up the stairs with a very heavy suitcase because I had seen one of the members of staff just walk right past her and look at her and carried on. This was a young chap in his 20s who could easily have done that, but it was too much effort for him to engage in that.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. I mean, maybe it's because they're told not to interfere with people, for all we know. But you'd like to think that TfL would have had something to say about it, wouldn't you?
If you think of, what the number of staff you've got on platforms, that one of them could have at least spotted that there's someone there who needs our support.
And we keep being told by the unions, don't we, that the reason they need staff on the stations is to help people who need help.
Yeah.
well, why are they not helping her?
Yeah, quite right.
You
quite
know,
right.
the argument that always comes from the RMT and from all the other train drivers' unions is, we need to have ticket offices for people who can't use apps or people who might be disabled and need to go to a ticket office. Well, sorry, that doesn't look like that's what they do.
Yeah, and I think it's Alex's point. It's diluted people who are genuinely in need because we get outraged and TfL try and pander to people who, you know, whatever it might be, some minuscule issue that they've taken offence to emotionally. This lady who's physically disabled wasn't able to get to where she wanted to go, and yet there's no support and there's no help for her. I think it's just wrong.
It is totally wrong. Maddie, who's your first nomination?
This is my big plank. I'm nominating Joe Biden's team for the week. Is
anybody going to admit to being in his team?
I don't know who's even in this and doing this, but I mean, anytime anyone not in Gen Z tries to relate to Gen Z is just cringe in itself. But Biden's team launched a TikTok last week on Sunday. It was on Super Bowl Sunday called Biden HQ. And it starts off, it's all very relatable to Super Bowl. It starts off with Biden answering Q&A, and the caption reads, "Lol, hey guys." And he's answering questions. And it's like, Travis or Jason Kelce, which is obviously so timely because everyone's obsessed with the Kelce brothers because of Taylor Swift and because of the Super Bowl. And he's just answering all these questions, and it's so cringe. Like, everything is so cringe. He then joins in all these different
it's
trends.
like your grandpa, isn't it?
Yes.
Trying to be trendy.
But also, my main question, as soon as I saw that he'd got this TikTok, I was like, I'm so confused by this contradiction. Didn't you guys ban like people using TikTok in the White House?
Yeah, exactly.
Aren't you not allowed to use it for
but
the
he'd
threat of
forgotten
China?
that. He'd forgotten that had happened.
Obviously,
They only did it late 2022.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've got a delight for you. We've got the TikTok. Here it is.
Chiefs or Niners?
Two great quarterbacks, hard to decide. But if I didn't say I was for the Eagles, then I'd be sleeping alone. My wife's a Philly girl.
Game or commercials?
Game.
Game or halftime show?
Game.
Trump or Biden?
Are you kidding? Biden.
He'd probably say Trump. Sorry. My bad.
I mean
That was the third take on that one.
Dangerous also.
Easy questions, aren't they?
Dangerous questions to throw at him as well, because I mean, he's
Heavily
not that
edited,
great at
Mike.
answering questions. He got very grumpy, didn't he, after the decision that was made about him taking classified documents out of the White House. And they said, well, we're not going to bother charging him because he's quite elderly and he hasn't got a very good memory.
Well, I think that
He's
was
also
his
the
dementia
president.
test.
He's also the president of the United States.
I know.
And I love that he had that TikTok post with lol. He can't even spell lol, let alone know what
Lol,
it means.
hey guys, it's like, obviously he's not writing that. The whole point of social media for anyone in politics is that it's meant to somewhat sound like them so that everyone believes that it's actually them behind the phone.
Yeah. I mean, politicians should stay away from two things, and maybe now three things. It was comedy, football, and now probably social media. Because
Well,
the
that
Tories,
was all three in one for him.
It really is. The Tories have done this week on Valentine's Day the Starmer Sutra.
That's fun. I like that.
Which
I thought that was
actually
really funny.
is not bad. It's not bad.
Can I just say, loads of people out there go, ow, cultural appropriation, mocking Hinduism. Oh, yeah, the PM's a Hindu.
He is a Hindu.
Still good.
He can get away with
Still
it.
fine.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like me having
like
got
I
that.
didn't even go down that rabbit hole.
No. But someone will have done. That's the thing. And you know
Someone
what?
will have done it and had to climb straight back out of it again, which is the pleasure of this.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the room when those decisions are made about what do we post on social media, who can be the most offended by this, and you end up just having some watered-down version of something that has no impact on it.
Are you
at all.
finding the youngest in the office to do it?
Well, pretty much,
Yeah.
and that used to be me. So you know, you sort of you get away with it. But I think that for Biden, it doesn't quite work. For Rishi Sunak, it doesn't quite work because he's got this sort of TV personality.
It never works really. I mean, you could say because we're all sort of political aficionados that that was quite funny. But I mean, most people just look at it and go, that's not comedy.
The only
These are
person
just,
that does
idiots.
kind of work is, sadly, I hate to say it is Trump because
he's authentic.
It genuinely is him probably behind doing it. And
Trump is brilliant. I mean, he was up this week talking about comparing Joe Biden to an electric car. You know, doesn't go very far, keeps needing to be recharged. I mean, it's just very funny. And, you know, he talks in ordinary people's language, but most politicians
Well, this
don't
is a
bother.
presidential comedy show.
The madness going on in American politics. I wouldn't be surprised come next year if Biden's somehow re-elected that he's actually taxidermy and sort of just wheeled out on casters.
I mean, I've been saying this for so long. I was saying it upstairs as well. it amazes me, America, 350 million people in this country, and this is the second time they're putting these two people up.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously not.
I think they'll get rid of Biden before the election.
He might get rid of himself, the rate he's
Well, he may
going.
well do.
That's what Gordon Brown said. He said, I'm too old to be a Prime Minister candidate here, but I'm too young to be a presidential candidate in America.
Yeah. Exactly right. So, Rafe, over to you.
Well, this is a crazy story. I mean, if you were to offer the British people the chance to live rent-free, in Midtown Manhattan, next to Grand Central Station, and get $1,000 a month in food, there'd be an exodus over there which might be bigger than the British invasion of the 60s.
Yes.
But that's actually what's being trialled now in New York by their far-left mayor, Eric Adams, the poster child for the dangers of virtue signalling, since he basically ushered in the biggest flood of migrants, 5 times as many asylum seekers in New York as in London. And he's essentially offering families $1,000 a month to go out to supermarkets and shops to buy food and baby supplies without any way of actually knowing if that's what they're going to be buying. And I'm sure there'll be lots of asylum seekers buying booze and fags and neglecting their children because they have carte blanche to have these prepaid debit cards which they can use to do that.
It's amazing.
And of course, it's the biggest draw in the world to people in, say, South America, where the average minimum wage is about $200 a month.
Right.
And here you can come to New York City.
Right. Well, he's obviously changed his tack on this, because we've got some clips here, and here's one of him talking about migrants in 2023.
We stated several months ago that we have reached full capacity. And that full capacity was verbalized, and now New York is just going to be visually actualized. We're going to see how much of our cup has basically runneth over.
I think he's used the wrong metaphor there, hasn't he? Because his cup isn't really running over. It's more that he's run out.
What I want
the
to
cup
know,
is actually
Rafe,
empty, isn't it?
Do you have any connections with people, and how long does a small boat take to cross the Atlantic?
Well, that's a good question.
Because I'm in.
Give me a pen and paper and I'll get back to you.
You want $1,000?
I mean, the amount that my rent's going up by in London, I could do with some free accommodation in Manhattan.
I'm confused by it.
I can live healthy.
This is obviously such an incentive for people to go to New York, and it's also an incentive for the Texas governor to turn around and say, I'm going to bus them to New York. They want them.
Which is what happens.
I know,
because the way to get to New York, if you want to go that route, is to go through Mexico. It's not to go to New York, it's to go through Mexico. So your small boat should be pitching you up somewhere.
A small boat to Mexico first.
To the Rio Grande.
And then go through the wall.
The Danish government cut immigration by cutting benefits by 50%.
Yeah.
That's the way you do
But
it.
this is the problem
You don't
here.
make it attractive to come to. And the minimum wage in America is $1,200 a month. People have to pay their rent out of that. So it's a big slap in the face to all those New York taxpayers. Migrants are now getting 40% more benefits than low income and the elderly in New York.
But this is the problem here. They keep talking about stopping the boats. The reason people come here is because of what they get when they get here. It's not because they just want to come to Britain, but they know they will get a hotel room, they know they'll get some money, they know they'll get some food, or they'll now know they'll get a house.
Oh, then they
so
demand if they
coming.
don't. That's the mad thing. I mean, they actually turn around and say, I don't want to go to a house in Somerset. I'd rather stay in London. I feel connected
But the
now.
thing is, all these major cities now, London, New York, effectively, you've got these left-wing leaders of those
Paris
cities.
has got some mad socialist mayor who just started charging people €200 to park a car for 6 hours.
And they're also saying, come on in, while the government is trying to say, actually, no, we're a breaking point. But yet these left-wing mayors are basically creating an incentive. It's absolutely
should we just have the plank of the week left-wing mayors? And just leave it at
left-wing
that?
mayors, plank of the year, plank of the century.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there must be something... there must be some reason why that's happening. You get Conservative national government, but then you get somehow all the local government in left-wing areas.
All about balance.
It's all. We don't like balance here at talkTV. I'm not interested in that. Coming up though, we're going to talk about a guy who got thrown out of a theatre because he wouldn't stand up and applaud the Palestinian flag. Plus, the Ministry of Defence are getting a kicking as well. This is Plank of the Week. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We are well and truly underway, ladies and gentlemen. We've had some very, very good nominations, and it's just the beginning. It's my turn now, and I'm going to do one which has been a big story pretty much all through the week, but we're still waiting for the man at the very centre of it to say anything about it. And this is the story about a comedian, so-called comedian, called Paul Curry, who was doing a show in London at a place called the Soho Theatre, and for some reason, inexplicably, he calls his comedy non-verbal, which I presume he means by that he doesn't speak. But he does speak, And here's a clip of him.
Gonna do some comedy. Gonna try some comedy, cause I'm Paul Curry. Gonna try and make you laugh, make you feel. Gonna try and make you laugh, cause I'm Paul Curry.
I mean, I'm sorry, not one person's laughing. Oh, you're laughing now.
Sorry, I'm laughing because I said ooh.
Trying a bit too hard,
I mean, that really is, yeah. Look at me. I'm really funny. Look, I put some funny glasses
on. If you've got to say the word comedy over and over to be clear you're actually having a laugh, I think you're not very good at what you do.
He's just a man with mental health issues and a funny haircut.
He doesn't look particularly funny to me. Anyway, what he did was he put on a show at the Soho Theatre, which was attended by about 100 or so people. It's a small, reasonably decent club in London. And at the end of it, he decided to pick up 2 flags, one Ukraine and one Palestine, and wave them about. And he encouraged the audience to get up and applaud the 2 flags, right? Now, there was one guy with his friend who was sitting in there called Liav Eitan, who happens to be from Israel. And he didn't stand up because he didn't want to. And instead of just going, OK, well, not everybody wants to stand up when you wave a flag, he was personally attacked by this guy who basically told him to F off out of his theatre, get out of my show, get out, called him a mother, can't really say it. And it was a horrendous scene, and he sort of encouraged the baying crowd to just chant Free Palestine, Free Palestine, as this guy who has moved to London from Israel relatively recently was simply going about his business. And the guy said later, it was so intimidating that, we were worried that we were going to actually be physically attacked. And this is where we are now in London in 2024, that people think that that's OK. Luckily, the theatre have apologised and they've now banned him from actually ever appearing there again. But he has not said sorry. He has completely ignored the incident. The only thing he's done is he's made his Instagram account private because he was getting a lot of abuse, and he reposted a message from somebody who said, "Really loved the show and thank you so much for standing up for Palestine."
Unbelievable. I'm all for comedy pushing the boundaries. I think that's what comedy's for. But there is a fine line between pushing the boundaries and being downright racist and offensive.
Well, I mean, I think it's funny sometimes when you go and see what you might call sort of abusive comedians who take the mickey out of the audience and pick on people, and that's quite funny. This was something else, though. Yeah. This was, I mean, the police are actually investigating because it was almost an incitement to violence for people to beat these guys up.
I'm interested to hear Rafe's views on this because when people sort of look back in history and go, how on earth did all these people follow Hitler and hold all of these horrible, distasteful beliefs? It was very ordinary people who thought they were doing the right thing. It was after World War, where the First World War, where there wasn't much money going around and the politics of jealousy is at its peak, and in the politics of jealousy, identity politics tends to go up. And of course, history has erased the fact that this was the National Socialist Party and was all bred within left-wing politics, the politics of envy.
This is Plank of the Week, by the way. I just want to remind you. This is take it easy, for God's sake, woman.
But frankly, what we've got today is a toxic combination of something really similar.
The Reith lectures come to talkTV.
Sorry, come on,
bloody South Bank shot.
But you're absolutely right. In the 1940s, people thought, how on earth did we get to that state? Oh, this could never happen again, they said in the 50s. Well, I'm sorry, it can happen again.
It is.
As we've seen in genocide after genocide. And part of the reason, as you said, it's the politics of envy. And on the left, of course, people hate capitalism, and all the tropes about the Jews and capitalism and the Rothschilds all play in, particularly now in this era when, of course, we have these cost of living crises and so forth. And again, it's our education system. When you have fewer than 10% of teachers who vote for centre-right parties, you have this huge block which include many extremists, not just at university, at the secondary and primary school level, who are perpetuating this anti-Semitism in very subtle ways.
You know what, Rafe? Those people would consider themselves the good guys.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
On the right side of
yeah, they do. They do think that.
And isn't that absurd? They are probably the most evil, most disgraceful people, yet they see themselves as the ones on the right side of history. Unbelievable.
It's shocking. Anyway, tell us about a pasta instead.
Right, on a brighter note, there's this pasta called...
See if you get international historian politics out of it.
I know, but Rafe and I are going to go for a port after this and put the world to rights.
You've got Valentine's Day.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So I'll bring you along to my date. You'll have a great time.
Three's never a crowd.
Never. Anyway, there's this pastor called Phillips who has proudly boasted that he's converted hundreds of migrants to Christianity, and there's 60% of them just then stop coming to church. And you're like, really?
Yeah.
You don't think they were gaming the system, that all of a sudden they've come from a Muslim-majority country where it's almost a national sport to persecute Christians? Then they turn up here and they're like, can you go home, please? They're like, Damascene prophecy, I've seen the light and I've got a tattoo to match. I mean, come on. I don't want the church attacked over this because, frankly, it's a central tenet of Christianity, the religion to which I belong, that if someone comes along and goes, I want to check out Jesus, you don't go, yeah, do you know what? You're kind of the wrong colour and from the wrong country, so no, don't do that. You say yes. But what you don't do is the Home Office then going, oh, well, you've read one page of the Bible in the last month, so you can stay. This isn't
They don't even ask
atrocity.
any questions at all, though. They don't even ask any questions.
I
They
didn't
just
even know
go,
that was the thing, that you can get asylum. If
Yeah.
Oh,
yes, that is so foreign to me, that you can get
Well, that's
asylum.
what happened to
This is
the
now a
chemical
thing.
guy, you know, the attacker from Clapham.
Oh, yeah.
He should have been deported because he was failed as an asylum seeker twice. He then committed a sex offence and was put on the sex offenders register. He then became a Christian. And then they went, oh, you can stay when he applied the third time.
Wow,
Yeah.
so that is a huge
Oh, so
loophole.
basically, if you want to stay
Yeah,
in this
mad.
country, you either become a sex offender and then say, they look down on sex offenders where I'm from. I might not be safe if I go home. Now, I've raped some people up. Or you say, I've also found God. And then the Home Office goes, well, you know, people might say mean words about him back home. We better keep him here. But, I mean, this vicar, don't brag about these things because vicars aren't some sort of, charitable service. They're ordinary thinking, breathing, logical, rational human beings like the rest of us who are more than capable of seeing red flags.
Presumably,
but
since
this
he
shouldn't
said
even
this,
be criteria.
But presumably, since he said this, he's got a queue round the block of people coming to see him to
Probably.
become, Christianised.
Well, no, they just mistook it for the dental surgery.
So
that's
what
offering
actually happens,
NHS
though, when somebody
appointments.
goes, I want to be a Christian, what you don't get a card, do you? How
Well,
do you know?
apparently, well, no, in theory, I'm not
You
a
have to be
baptised
baptised?
Christian. I'm a regular church
baptised
girl.
with the whole thing.
And
So
that's
he's
what they were doing.
baptising.
He was doing that in the ocean.
In the ocean, this guy, literally had some sort of mass conveyor belt into the sea. And he said, well, do you know
He
what?
took
It
them
was
into the
cold in
sea.
the ocean.
Some
That tested
cowboy
their
vicar,
faith.
is that what it was?
On a dinghy.
That sounds ridiculous.
But the whole point is here that, if you know Islam, the biggest sin, the biggest crime is apostasy. It's probably worse than murder, right?
Yeah.
Even in this country, not to get too serious, one
they've
third
worked that
of young
out.
British Muslims in this country believe you should be put to death if you leave the faith.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the
but
idea that
then
you're going to be
you've also
coming from
got-
Afghanistan and suddenly saying, oh, hallelujah, where's my nearest vicar's tea party?
Bringing
It's
it-
for, it's for the
Where's the
birds.
big-
Bringing it back South Bank, FYI, they've also got this thing in Islam called taqiyya, which is
I've had that
disguising
in
your
Mexico.
faith. Taqiyya, it makes you happy.
Taqiyya sunrise.
No, but taqiyya is all about disguising your faith and pretending you're not particularly extreme, that you don't go with Islam. Oh, no, I'm just an ordinary person, if it helps you get to
Exactly.
the point that you can advance Islam.
Why is it that
So-
only the people who run this country don't know any of this stuff? And they just seem to go, oh, OK, then you can stay. Oh, you're all right, you're fine. Yep, no, keep coming. They don't seem to have any kind of checking system of any kind whatsoever.
No, it's
and
just-
you can just walk all over them and get whatever result is you want.
Because it's box ticking, Mike. It's government by box ticking. There's no actual sort of understanding of how the system works in Westminster right now. And I'm not particularly religious. I'm not religious at all, actually. But I do understand that ultimately, if we're being so disingenuous by claiming you've got some sort of faith, it's like buying Christianity off of eBay.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you can't do that.
But also, how do you? I still don't get how they then tell whoever it is they're telling, the Home Office, that they're now Christian. Because I mean, they might not even have to do
But
anything.
they get tattoos. This is the thing. They go, well,
but-
I've got
They
this
get
big
a letter-
tattoo of a cross
And then
on
they
my
get
arm.
let
It's
in.
like, you come from a country where people cover up their
Yeah, but
bodies.
They
Don't
get a letter from the priest confirming all of this.
Oh,
And
I see.
I don't believe that these priests are deluded in any way. I think that they're actually actively participating in this, knowing all of this. It used to be that the Church of England was the Conservative Party at prayer. It's now, something like the Green Party or Corbynistas at prayer.
Or is it
Yeah.
transactional?
And they know what they're doing. They see this as a way to get back at the Tory party and to, again, they think that they're the good guys. They think we're going to house these people, not thinking about the repercussions, as we saw in Clapham, of what happens when you do that.
It's all very, very weird. Anyway, Leon, over to you. Ministry of Defence.
Ministry of Defence is my plank. And the reason being is that they seem to be prioritising diversity when they're looking for people to fight in the army, effectively.
So
Now-
bizarrely, if you decided to become a Christian and convert to stay here, you probably wouldn't be able to get into
Probably
the
wouldn't.
army.
You got a better job. You got a better job staying.
I see what they're doing now.
Yeah, so I get it, but I just think when it comes to diversity, in some industries, actually, diversity is a good thing. So advertising, for example, if you're trying to sell to different cultures, it's good to have those cultures part of your team. When it comes to war and fighting, surely the only metrics that we should be measuring those people on is how strong are you, how fit are you, and how sort of mentally capable are you to
Also, how
defend this country.
patriotic are you? That kind of helps if you're
Absolutely.
going to,
If you believe in the
pro-patria
cause,
more.
And according to recent questions that were answered by young people in this country, not very patriotic is the answer, because nobody wants to fight for their country, do they?
We
No,
won't
they
miss
don't.
it.
It's a bit of a
I've seen
shocker,
on
actually.
TikTok, no one wants to fight.
No one
I mean,
wants
I
to
wouldn't
fight.
be, but...
No one wants to. Well, maybe you're not required, Maddie.
I'm not a part of this country.
It's no.
Yeah, are you going to fight for this country or not? I'm pointing at you, Maddie.
Me? Yeah. No, I'm like Rafe. Yeah.
No,
I have to see the physical test that I have to pass for that.
If it's a part of my visa, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, is that the incentive?
I think we should have national service for all migrants. And then
I want to.
I am a migrant.
I'm actually in a fighting
What do you want them to train up all those young men up and down the backbone of this country?
Are you saying they're not trained?
I'm saying that most of the young men right now going about are wearing balaclavas and carrying weapons anyway. They're ready to go.
There is that. There is that.
I mean,
Let's have a look at a woke recruitment video. Not for us, but for the US military. Check it out.
It begins in California with a little girl raised by two moms. When I was 6 years old, one of my moms had an accident that left her paralyzed. But she tapped into my family's pride to get back on her feet, eventually standing at the altar to marry my other mom. And after meeting with an Army recruiter, I found it. A way to prove my inner strength. I'm U.S. Army Corporal Emma Malone Lord, and I answered my calling.
What?
I think every single box has been ticked by that.
What is she talking about? Apparently this is an advert to attract lesbians into the military.
Oh.
Doesn't the military do that all by itself just
by
being the military?
I think it does. I think it's a sort of go-to job.
Shave your head and wear combat gear. I think most lesbians would be like, hey!
No, I mean, I don't get it. I genuinely.
I don't know, is that too politically incorrect even for
Don't you just want women in general? Why does it matter if they're gay or straight or whatever?
Being gay doesn't make you a better fighter.
Yeah.
You know, being a person of colour doesn't make you a better fighter. You know, I just don't understand this.
If they want to be there, they want to be there and they'll fight.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose they'll say, well, in the old days, if you were a lesbian, they'd make fun of you. But, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the point of it all is. And I don't understand why you have to have this narrative about, you know, my two moms. You know, if you're a lesbian, I don't care how many moms you've got. You are what you are, aren't you?
Yes.
I don't know. It's all very confusing. Anyway, that was the woke recruitment ad for the US military. If you want to sign up, go to New York, get yourself a free flat and get some army fatigues, and away you go. Coming up, we're going to the royal family, or the ex-royal family, and also we'll be talking about some more politicians. This is Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We're more than halfway through now, and we've got some great nominations already, but there's still more to come. And we're going to go back to Maddie Hale, because you're going to do one of our favourites.
I know, this is a household favourite for our talkTV, staff, but...
Planks of the year, no less.
They are planks of the year or planks of the last few years, but Harry and Meghan, I'm usually not too opinionated on these two. They don't really bother me that much, but I did find the new website, sussex.com, quite amusing, because I'm just so confused by this need to steer away from the royal family, but then every so now and then just capitalise on the name. And I thought we were moving away from Duke and Duchess. That's what I don't understand.
Right. And Prince as well.
And
he calls himself Prince Harry and Meghan. That's the name.
I do not get it. But the one thing I wanted to read out to you, that this is just the most cringe thing I've ever heard. Harry described, they have people to do this website for them. Harry described as humanitarian, military veteran, mental health advocate, environmental campaigner. Meghan described as one of the most influential women in the world, a feminist and champion of human rights and gender equity.
Yeah.
What? Like, why are you describing yourself?
I mean,
like
they're
this?
just taking the mickey now, isn't it? It's just getting out there and going, listen, you need to listen to me because I'm one of the most influential people on the planet, right? And you just go, are you? Really? Okay, then.
Well, it was like Time magazine, like who cares?
And environmentalist Harry and Meghan just flew, I think this week, did they not, up to the Invictus Games in another private jet. Interesting environmentalism.
She also describes herself as a cultural catalyst for change in the world, which is absolutely remarkable.
Also, you'll be pleased to know that she signed a new podcast deal. I don't know if you ever listened to any of the podcasts. Yeah. She signed it with that incredibly well-known audio organisation called Lemonada. Which I don't think anybody's ever heard of.
I would just warn them what the CEO of Spotify said when he cancelled their deal on Spotify for having produced 13 hours in 2.5 years and called them effing grifters.
Effing grifters. And I think specifically she was not very talented. Because, I mean, all their podcast was before was Meghan talking about herself to people who were actually quite interesting.
But I don't think she does the interviews.
No, there's several suggestions that she certainly didn't do all of them.
No.
and that she gets some young producer to ask the questions, and she just sort of fills in the gaps.
Such a slap in the... If I was the producer...
Do you know, I would be really interested
Yeah.
in conducting a long interview with Meghan with a psychologist present to say, so why is it that you're a narcissist who dresses up as your husband's dead mother?
Definitely a
She's
story.
a fascinating
Definitely
character.
pitch that.
That's a podcast to watch.
Yeah, listen to that.
And that I would listen to. That's a good question. Very good question. Question of the week, I think. Rafe, down to you. The Green Party, it says here.
Yes, so you'd have thought with the whole world obsessed by the environment
I completely
and
forgot about the
climate
Green
change.
Party, by the way.
But you'd have thought that in this environment that the Green Party would become a broad church, single issue on the environment, just like UKIP did for the EU referendum.
Yes.
Instead, they seem to be far more obsessed about policing the views of their members and classifying the majority of the British public as bigots for their gender-critical views. And that's basically what we've got here in this case. The latest case in which actually gender-critical beliefs have been upheld by the legal system. Dr. Shira Ali, who was the former deputy leader of the Green Party, was dismissed from the party for having said, brace yourself, this is shocking stuff, a woman is typically defined as an adult human female, typified by XX chromosomes. I mean, what an absolute bigot.
Unbelievable.
And
outrageous.
And the Green Party almost bankrupted themselves over this, £200,000 to £400,000. They've actually decided to increase Green Party membership fees by 50%, saying it's for an election war chest. It's actually to build up their coffers.
Do
because
people
of
actually
this
pay
case.
to belong to the
I
Green
didn't know
Party?
that either.
I mean, how stupid do you have to be? That's like a double whammy stupid, isn't it?
Yeah.
One, you're in the Green Party. Two, you're paying them.
Do you know, I for a long time had to suffer when I was in the European Parliament with a fellow MEP who was voted for the southeast of England, my constituency, at exactly the same time, also called Alexandra Phillips, and she was
Really?
from the Green Party.
What are the chances of that?
What are the
I
chances?
think I might have interviewed her once. I don't think it went very well for her.
Did you get the wrong booking?
No.
You wanted the real Alex.
You ended up with a show.
I think it was before I knew Alex, but this woman was deranged, like all of
She
the
is
Green Party
deranged,
people, because I had the misfortune of watching the Rwanda safety bill debate in the House of Lords this week, and both of the dames from the Green Party, Dame Bennett and Dame Baroness Bennett rather than Baroness
Lucas?
Jones.
Caroline?
No,
no.
Lucas is
Who
still
knows what
in
they're
the
doing?
House of
Is
Commons.
she?
And, you know, they don't really ever now talk about green issues at all. They've just become, flat-on socialists.
I remember a little while ago when there was talk of the Green Party were interested in discussing a curfew for men.
That's right.
After a certain...
Yes.
After a certain...
Yes.
After there was a
6 p.m. Yeah, after dark, no men on the street.
Yeah, and we're cracking on. We better get home.
Who am I going to hang out with?
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
It's,
you have to get some friends from the US Army over.
All right.
That include gay men. Were gay men excluded, or were they included
That's
in
fine.
that? You know?
What about if you're a man who suddenly identifies as a woman, though? That's how you get around
That's
that
okay.
curfew.
Yeah. Well, you get around a lot when you do that, to be fair. I mean, you can go to a women's prison and everything. It's great.
Yeah. Why are you looking at me? I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's terrible.
Looking at you?
No more jocks in Fox coming into our spaces.
Exactly
I say.
right. But, this whole kind of gender-critical business, you can't quite tell whether it's over or it's not over, whether people have... it took ages, didn't it, to get Keir Starmer to finally admit that 99% of women didn't have a penis, even though he thinks that 1% of them do. And it took ages for Rishi Sunak to admit that actually that's what he thought as well. So I was under the impression that this had all kind of gone away, or was going away.
No, I mean, it's as strong as ever with the Lib Dems as well. And you have to remember, of course...
Nobody cares about
the reason that Scotland's got this gender recognition bill is because the Green Party is in coalition with the SNP, and it's a red line for the Green Party for that coalition. That's why the Scots are having to go through this terrible process with this terrible legislation where anyone 16 and above can just self-ID without any medical diagnosis or whatever.
No, exactly.
But it's a strange hill for the Green Party to die on, given the last census, only 100,000 people said that they were trans, which is about 0.2% of the population.
Yeah.
And yet they're supposed
That's
to be dealing with
even smaller
climate
than the number of people that vote for the Green Party.
Didn't he also say usually defined?
I don't know.
Like, he wasn't like they are defined, but he said usually. It's like,
Right. Usually seems to get you off. What do they do in Australia about all this?
Oh, commonly
It's just not
defined.
really, it's spoken about it. It's not in such depth.
Right. Because, there was a time here that whenever you got a politician on, you had to ask them the question, can you define what a woman is?
I recall
and it became
that.
a thing where and most of them couldn't do it because they were too frightened.
Well, Pierce asked my Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese,
Yeah.
when he was over here, and I think he was a bit like, what?
Right. So he didn't go for the adult human female
I think there was
answer.
I think it's just like, who cares? Just let everyone do what they want. The only thing that was spoken about for a while was transgender women in sport.
Yes.
That was spoken about during the election quite a bit.
Right.
But other than that, it's just...
But the sporting world seems to have become quite sensible about all of that, doesn't it? Because the sporting world, mostly now, if you're a trans woman, you can't compete against women because it's not fair. In particularly, sports with kind of, strength and...
It's dangerous, Mike.
Well, it's dangerous, like boxing, rugby, all of that sort of thing. Yeah, it is. Absolutely mad. Anyway, we're nearly finished. I'm going to come up with one more for you, and we're going up to Scotland, funnily enough, Rafe, you'll be pleased to know. This is Plank of the Week. More coming up after this. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We are in the final furlong, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to decide who's actually going to win it. And of course, as you know, it will be anything but democratic because I'll decide and nobody else can argue with it. My final nomination, though, is that man in Scotland, the First Minister of Scotland, unelected First Minister, I should say, Mr. Humza Useless, as I like to call him. He unfortunately lost one of his ministers only last week, the guy who went off on holiday to Morocco and unfortunately didn't understand how to use an iPad and ran up £11,000 worth of debt to the government because the government was paying for his iPad, and he came home and just put the expense claim in for 2 weeks away, 11 grand. And then, inexplicably, blamed his own children and threw his own kids under the bus and said they were watching a football match, right?
I would do that, though.
Would you?
Yeah.
That's a shocking thing to admit to do.
I don't have kids.
Anyway, it didn't help him because he had to resign in the end anyway, right?
Yeah.
But Humza Yusuf, who has got all sorts of problems in Scotland, too numerous to name. Rafe was talking about some of them earlier. He's jetted off on holiday because it's half term, fair enough. Him and his wife, who's a councillor from Dundee. But they've gone to Qatar, which a lot of people have pointed out has actually been linked with the funding of various terrorist organisations, including Hamas. And as much as we know that because his wife has got links to Palestine through her family, that he's very much pro-Palestine and pro getting Israel out of Gaza and all the rest of it. It's kind of a weird place to go on holiday, isn't it?
They don't have links to Hamas, Mike. That's where they house their leaders.
Well, what I'm saying is they have financial links, though, as well.
A lot of money.
Embedded in Qatar. So for Humza Yousaf to go there in the middle of this conflict, I just find incredibly naive in terms of his political judgment.
I mean, he should do the David Cameron thing, go on holiday to Cornwall and bring a photographer with you, because he's a politician.
Exactly.
But maybe he actually works for the American CIA, because the reason that Hamas are housed in Qatar is so the Americans can keep their eyes on them, because Qatar's actually a big Western ally. Sorry to ruin your whole Plank of the Week premise.
They also quite like living in Qatar because they don't have to crawl around in tunnels.
They love being there. But America basically went to Doha. Would you put all of these wrong-uns here so we can watch what they're doing?
Well, they also are the only place in the world that has an embassy for the Taliban, so I'm not sure that they're an American ally. I think the Americans are just trying to be nice to them in order to make sure they don't lose the other side.
Mike.
Yeah, I know, but they're not an ally of America, don't get me wrong.
They sold us so much liquefied natural gas last year. It's the only reason Mrs. Miggins didn't freeze in her bed last Christmas.
Yeah, well, they've got a lot of natural gas.
What is his team doing? Just from a PR perspective, it's pretty easy to just be like, hey, just in terms of holiday destinations.
Yeah.
Qatar might not be up there just because, they've funded $1.8 billion
in the middle of what's going on, particularly since they've also been accused, the Qatari government, of financing the Houthis in the Red Sea, blowing up various ships and, sending drones up all over the place. So it's just a very odd thing to do.
Yeah.
And, of course, the Scots government, being what it is pretty useless. They came out and said, we never disclose where the First Minister goes on holiday. Well, I'm sorry, everybody already knows where he's gone on holiday. We just want an explanation as to why he's gone there.
Why does he have that luxury? No one else does.
We're not asking where he's gone, we're asking why he's gone.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, I think also with Qatar, the human rights record is atrocious.
Yeah.
We saw that the amount of migrant labour workers who were killed during the construction of the World Cup.
Yeah.
And yet this guy, again, sees himself as the holier than thou and on the right side of history. He's out there lauding it in Qatar.
But we've seen Humza Yousaf before making out himself to be some kind of sort of international arbiter of diplomacy when he went to COP28, which he really didn't need to do because we already had the Prime Minister there, thanks. He goes and arranges a meeting with President Erdogan of Turkey. to talk about, you know,
he's going
to talk about what we should do about Gaza.
He's going to Qatar to negotiate some sort of ceasefire or something. Maybe that's what he's
Patel did that in Israel, didn't she? When she was
had to resign.
and arranged
The thing
meetings.
is, he doesn't have to resign.
I don't think he cares about the optics at all. I think he knows perfectly well how damaging people down in England will see it. But in Scotland, I think it will play perfectly fine, and no one's going to care about it.
Well, it depends.
They're just going to show the hypocrisy. I mean, same thing with Gary Lineker, right? Commentating before the World Cup for Qatar, and then suddenly on finding his principles later on when he wasn't being paid by them.
No, I know exactly right. But the thing about useless is that if you are an SNP supporter, you support him. But if you're not, you don't. And there's a lot more people up there who don't support him. And he's looking like losing. The SNP's looking like losing a lot of MPs in Westminster. But you wouldn't be surprised to know that we've got a sneak peek at Humza Useless's holiday. And here he is. Have a look from Qatar.
Oh.
I love this clip.
You can never tire of seeing this. Never tire of it. There he goes. I think we need to play that again. Chuck, I think let's have another look because it wasn't very noisy, that one. Here he goes. This is obviously not actually in Qatar. This is in the Scottish Parliament. You can recognise it by that very expensive wood panelling. And he just can't catch a break, the poor guy.
I mean, to be fair, that must have hurt on his broken leg or whatever it was.
Why was he going so fast with a broken leg?
I think the trouble is that what he did was set up. He actually set it up. I mean, talking about going to Cornwall with a cameraman. This was him setting this up because he wanted somebody to see that he was capable of being still mobile even though he had an injury. And unfortunately, it all went horribly wrong because he fell off the scooter. It was all recorded. Because normally you wouldn't have a guy recording you in a corridor of the Parliament.
It reminds me of Joe Biden again when he's on stage and he runs up the stage as quick as he can and then he gets back to his doddery walk. These politicians, they think we're idiots, but we're not.
You're always on camera.
Well, I mean, that's almost as good as Biden falling off his bike, isn't it? Because he falls off his bike after it stops. Yeah. It's like he doesn't fall off it while it's going. He kind of just, it comes to a really slow stop and it just goes, falls off.
Don't feel sorry.
Very funny. Well, here we are. We're at the very end. I mean, there's been some great ones here. And I have to say, it was going to be between, I think, Harry and Meghan are always up there with the best. Also, I think the Democrats are good as well. I think, though, this week it has to be the Labour Party, doesn't it? Because, I mean, I reckon by this time next week, there'll be about a dozen or maybe more of these characters who want to run as Labour candidates in various elections. And they're going to be really problematic for Starmer. And who knows, he might even be even further, closer to the Tories by, this time next week. We shall see. But here we are, the Labour Party and Keir Starmer. Well done. You win. Plank of the week. Thank you very much indeed to Alex Phillips. Thank you to Leon. Thank you to Maddie for being here for the first time. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to Rafe as well. We've got loads more to do here at talkTV, not least coming up at 11:30, The World According to Mike Graham. You won't want to miss that. Plank of the week back, same time next week. Have a good night.